Hello and welcome to another episode of Lore and Loot. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm starting a new segment called Weapon Guides, in which I'll be talking about the different weapon types in the game. There will also be armor guides, clothing guides, unique item guides, and of course, we'll eventually be discussing the legendary artifacts found in the game. I thought that, this being lore and loot, it would be appropriate to talk about the various weapons and armor and items in the game, and it breaks up the monotony of just doing faction quests. To start off the new segment, we're going to be covering the generic short blades found in Morrowind. Now, short blades are, obviously, affected by the short blade skill. The higher your skill in short blade, the more effective your attacks will be. This is reflected by giving you a plus 0.75 to your chance to land a strike each time you level up this skill. Short blade, the skill itself, is governed by the speed attribute, meaning that if you level up your short blade skill by training or by using short blades to kill foes, you'll be able to increase your speed attribute by more points on the level up. Certain races have a natural proficiency with short blades, meaning that when you are creating a character, your natural ability will give you a starting boost to the short blade skill automatically. Dunmer have a plus 10 bonus to short blade, and Khajiit and Redguards have a plus 5 bonus to short blades. In addition to this racial bonus, certain classes have short blade as a major skill. The Agent, Assassin, Nightblade, Rogue, and Thief classes start off with the short blade skill at 30, and that's before taking into account your racial abilities, meaning that a Dunmer Assassin, for example, would start off with the short blade skill at 40. 3 classes have short blade as a minor skill. These are the Mage, Pilgrim, and Sorcerer. The minor skill increases the starting level by 15, which is still nice. Increasing your short blade skill, of course, is achieved by using short blades to kill stuff. Anytime you land a successful attack with a short blade, your short blade skill increases. Another way to increase your skill is by paying for training. Now, I mentioned this in another video, but in Morrowind, you can train without limits as long as you have the gold for it. There are actually limits on training other than gold, and that's faction/disposition and trainer level. Faction disposition means that some trainers will only train people of their own factions. The disposition aspect of that means that some NPCs will attack you on sight. In other words, they are hostile, yet they are flagged as trainers. This essentially means that despite the fact that they can train you in a skill, because they will attack you on sight, they're not the best choice for training. There are ways around this hostility, and you can get training from these NPCs, but we'll cover that in another video. The second thing I mentioned was trainer level, and this means that a trainer cannot train you higher than their own skill. So for example, if your short blade skill is at 70, a trainer with a short blade skill of 50 cannot train you further in this skill. And finally, you cannot train a skill higher than its governing attribute, meaning that if your short blade skill is at 50, for example, but your speed attribute is at 49, you will not be able to pay for training until you increase your speed above your short blade skill. But yeah, no limits on training. Alright, now that we have that out of the way, I'm going to cover the trainers in short blade that can train you over 70 and that are not hostile. The master trainer in short blade is Todwendy at the Lucky Lockup Tavern in Balmora. She can train you all the way up to 100. Naleno Dorvain in the House Lalu Council Manor in Balmora can train you up to level 74. Athen Serethi in Serethi Manor in Alderun, Feral Rethorin in the Redoran Treasury in Vivec, and Navil Ienith at the Dren Plantation can all train you up to level 70. And finally, before we actually get into the weapons themselves, some factions will have short blade as a favored skill, meaning that in order to advance in rank in that faction, short blade is one of the skills that you can choose to master. These factions are House Lalu, the Morak Tong, and the Thieves Guild. There is one other faction you can join that favors the short blade, but we're going to cover that faction in a different video down the line. I kind of want to keep them sort of a secret for now. Okay, now let's discuss the weapons themselves. There are 20 varieties of generic short blade available in the game. Karothmuk Gro Musgub is an NPC living in Saran. He's a blacksmith and he is very knowledgeable in all the weapon types. He has some dialogue about short blade if you ask him. The dagger and short sword are Western Imperial weapons. The Tanto and Wakizashi are styled after the Akaviri blades. These weapons are light and fast, most effective against lightly armored opponents, but a skilled user can outlast more heavily armed and armored opponents. The dagger, Tanto, and short sword are thrusting weapons. The Wakizashi, a chopping and slashing weapon. Rank them by effectiveness as dagger, Tanto, short sword, and Wakizashi, with dagger the least effective. Now let's dissect this a little bit further. Short blades have two major advantages over any other weapon. The first advantage is their attack speed. Short blades have the fastest attack speed of any weapon type in the game. Even the slowest of the short blades is faster than any other weapon type. Why is this important? Well, first of all, deeps, damage per second. The faster you can swing your weapon, the more attacks you can get in, the more damage you do. A fast character with a high short blade skill can get in more accurate attacks and thus do more damage than a slow character wielding a two-handed warhammer, for example. The other thing about fast attacks is that you have a small chance to stagger an opponent with each attack. It follows then that the more attacks you can get off, the more likely you are to stagger an opponent. And indeed, I've run a short blade character with low HP, but that staggered so often that stronger, more heavily armored enemies would barely be able to get off attacks. As a side note, agility is the attribute that governs staggered resistance, so the higher your agility, the less likely you are to get staggered yourself. The second major advantage short blades have over other weapon types is that they weigh less. Now, this isn't as major as attack speed, but lower weight means you have more room for loot, potions, scrolls, enchanted items, etc. It also means you waste less fatigue when you run because the more you are carrying, the faster your fatigue drains when you run. So while it may not be the end-all be-all, having a lighter weapon can be an advantage. The disadvantage of short blades is, of course, the raw attack power itself. Realistically speaking, you're not going to find short blades that do more than 15 points of damage. Yes, there are some blades that do more, but they're rare. So as a general rule, most short blades do very little damage. This means that your best strategy when using short blades is to spam the attack button. There are very, very few reasons to ever do a power attack when using a short blade unless you're doing a sneak attack and are trying to get the maximum attack bonus possible. Otherwise, DPS is your best friend when using short blades. So let's run through all the short blades from worst to best, and this is my personal ranking, so it's very subjective. And I'm only going to be mentioning the damage of each weapon's best attack, be it chop, thrust, or slash. The worst dagger in the game is the Chitin Dagger, with a thrust attack of 4. It weighs 1.5 and has a weapon endurance of 380 and is worth a meager 6 gold. Its speed is 2.0, which is the lowest among the short blades, meaning that this weapon is useless. Next is the Iron Dagger, with a thrust attack of 5, a weight of 3.0, an endurance of 400, and an attack speed of 2.5. It's slightly better than the Chitin Dagger. The Chitin Short Sword has a thrust attack of 4 to 9, a weight of 4.0, an endurance of 540, but an attack speed of 2.0, making it the worst short sword in the game. The Iron Tanto has a thrust attack of 6, a weight of 4.0, an endurance of 500, and a respectable 2.25 attack speed. The Steel Dagger has a thrust attack of 5, a weight of 3.0, endurance of 450, and an attack speed of 2.5, which is why I put it just above the Iron Tanto. The Iron Short Sword is next, with a thrust attack of 7 to 11 points, a weight of 8.0, an endurance of 600, and an attack speed of 2.0. The Iron Wakizashi is the first non-thrust short blade weapon on our list, with its best attack being a chop, 7 to 12 points of damage, a weight of 10.0, an endurance of 500, and an attack speed of 2.25. The Steel Tonto has a thrust attack of 6 to 11, weight of 4.0, an endurance of 600, and an attack speed of 2.25. Next up is the Silver Dagger. The Silver Dagger has a thrust attack of only 5, a weight of 2.4, endurance of 400, and an attack speed of 2.5, but it's the first weapon so far that can damage certain undead enemies, like ghosts, and some Daedra, like scamps. Up next, we have the Imperial Short Sword, with a thrust attack of 6 to 10 points, a weight of 9.0, endurance of 700, and a 2.0 attack speed. The Steel Short Sword has a thrust attack of 7 to 12, weight of 8.0, endurance of 750, and an attack speed of 2.0. Next, we have the Steel Wakizashi, with a slashing attack, that's right, slashing attack, of 7 to 12 points, a weight of 10, an endurance of 600, and an attack speed of 2.25. The Silver Short Sword has a thrust attack of 7 to 10, weighs 6, endurance of 570, and an attack speed of 2.0, but I rank it above the Steel Wakizashi because, again, it can damage undead and Daedra, and even though it does less damage than the Steel Wakizashi, I think that makes it slightly better. Up next is our first and only Dwarven weapon, the Dwarven Short Sword, with a thrust attack of 8 to 15, a weight of 8, endurance of 1050, and an attack speed of 2.0, making it one of the most durable normal weapons in the category. I rank the Glass Dagger next, but it's really a toss-up between this one and the Dwarven Short Sword. The Glass Dagger has a chop and slash attack of 6 to 15 points, a weight of only 1.8, an attack speed of 2.5, but only has an endurance of 300, making it the least durable weapon in the category. I put it slightly higher than the Dwarven Short Sword because of its light weight and the fact that it has two attack types that do 6 to 15 points of damage, but really, it could be ranked below the Dwarven Short Sword. It's also worth 4,000 septims, so that's nice as well. Alright, now we're getting into the elite, hard to find weapons in this category. First up, we have the Daedric Dagger. The Daedric Dagger has an attack of 8 to 12 across the board, a weight of 9.0, endurance of 700, and an attack speed of 2.5. The Daedric Tonto is next, with an attack of 9 to 20 across the board, weight of 12.0, endurance of 1100, and an attack speed of 2.25. Next up is the Ebony Short Sword. It has a thrust attack of 12 to 25, a weight of 16.0, an endurance of 1200, and an attack speed of 2.0. I ranked the Daedric Short Sword at number 2 with a chop and slash attack of 10 to 26, a weight of 24, an endurance of 1500, and an attack speed of 2.0. I ranked it slightly lower than the number 1 weapon simply because of the attack speed. Because on average, across the attack types, the Daedric Short Sword does the most damage of any of the short blade weapons. The best short blade weapon, non-enchanted, non-unique in the base game, I ranked as the Daedric Wakizashi, with a chop attack of 10 to 30, a weight of 30, an endurance of 1100, and an attack speed of 2.25. It's valued at a ridiculous 48,000 drakes. Now, the Daedric weapons are incredibly rare, with only a few guaranteed locations for each in the entire game. For example, in the base game, there is only one Daedric Wakizashi in the entire game, with one more guaranteed added by the Tribunal expansion if you have it. This makes the Ebony Short Sword, in my opinion, from a practical standpoint, the best short-bladed weapon in the game, as you are way more likely to run across one of these than any of the other Daedric weapons. And there you have it, folks. the complete guide to short blades in the base game. In future videos, I'll cover short blades added by the expansions, Tribunal and Blood Moon, as well as cover other weapon types, armor types, enchanted and rare items, and, like I mentioned earlier, we'll do an artifact guide as well. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Lore and Loot, and I'll catch you next time.